and welcome to the Imperishable Consciousness platform, where I'm your host, Adrian Camacho. We look to record and preserve modern history in an attempt to inspire the next generation of leaders and changemakers. Today is episode 6, and we are joined by a very special guest who is a published author, former librarian, and has also traveled all over the world, Esther Perica.
Thank you. It's nice to be here with you.
Yep, thank you so much for joining us. So to kind of start off, where are you from and what has helped you get to where you are today?
Thank you. My hometown is San Francisco, and I grew up there, went all through elementary, secondary, and even college. I came to the Midwest, to Dominican University, which is formerly Rosary College, for a master's program in library and information science. And that's what brought me here. And then I was lucky, I got married, bought a house, got a job, and I'm still here.
Nice.
Yeah, 55 awesome. Years later.
Yeah, for sure. And so what would you say that your history is with like education? As far
history
as, like,
and education? Yeah. Pretty much a Catholic education all the way through. You know, in those days, all my teachers were nuns. In college was kind of interesting because the way they structured the curriculum was Catholic Women's College.
Oh, that's
interesting. The way they structured the curriculum was first year you did everything ancient, second year medieval, everything, medieval history, literature, medieval everything, philosophy. And so when we graduated, we always said we were prepared for any crisis in the 10th century. Yeah.
That's interesting for sure. I think that you've mentioned in the past that you went to like an all-girls school also?
All the way through.
Yeah.
Until graduate school. I was at Purdue for a year, but all the rest is pretty much women's colleges.
Yeah, and how would you say that experience was for you? Would you say that was, I don't know, beneficial or?
Yeah, that was a different time. Remember, it was the 50s and 60s.
Okay.
So I didn't know anything different. I did have friends that went to the public schools, and that was fine with them. They were always jealous. We had so many more holidays than they did because we had all the holy days and everything.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And but I don't see that there was that much of a difference. Ours were probably stricter, and we didn't have to have as many clothes because we had our uniforms.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely can relate to that also. I had uniforms also when I went to St. Colette Middle School. So
yeah.
Aside from that, like, how have you been able to like interact with your community as like a librarian? Because you obviously served as that role.
Yeah. My training was actually for rare books and archives, but those jobs never come open.
Yeah.
And I bet some of the librarians that were there when I graduated, they're still there. So I was lucky enough to get into high schools. And so I was at Rolling Meadows for 10 years.
Nice.
And Elk Grove for 20 years. So, and I liked high schools. You know, I got excited about homecoming, went to prom a couple times as a chaperone. That was kind of fun. And it was very nice. I was really happy I was in schools.
Yeah, I'm sure it's very fulfilling to be able to have that interaction with kids on a daily basis and see them even grow up and graduate. Like you said, go like prom and stuff like that. You probably see kids that you, I don't know, check out books on a day-to-day basis. I know I went to Rolling Meadows High School obviously too, so I know how the setup was there. In some of my English classes, we obviously go and pick out books, you know what I'm saying, like as a class. So I'm sure that kids maybe that didn't read were still forced to go and you were still interacting with them. So you definitely knew a lot of kids, I'm sure.
And it's still nice. I run into former students all over the place. A former student is my travel agent. You know, a former student of mine works at O'Hare Customs. A former student was with British Air. So, I mean, you do run into them all, you know, because they're all like in their 40s and 50s now.
For sure. It's like a small world in a sense. I know it's a common saying, but it really is a small world.
Yeah.
How do you think that we can keep like the younger generation like involved and like motivated to read books?
That is a hard question. I think the biggest readership we had was right around the year 2000 with the Harry Potter books.
Yeah.
That students were clamoring to read those books. We couldn't keep enough of them in the library. We would buy 10 copies of each one, and they would have long waiting lists and stuff. It's very difficult. I think just expose them to places like the different libraries, like Rolling Meadows Library and Elk Grove and Arlington libraries, so that they know the variety of books that are here. Yeah,
for sure. I think you made a great point, like the Harry Potter books, like having different genres and different like themes and storylines that are interesting. And even like I remember when I was in like 4th grade and like 3rd grade, like reading a Harry Potter book was kind of like above your grade level, so like
Yeah.
having things that are like challenging and kind of like cool to be like a high level reader or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I know I always liked reading like The Ranger's Apprentice and books that were similar to like Harry Potter, like those storylines. So that's definitely a great point, is finding like books that like students can like gravitate towards and like even relate towards in any aspect that might be.
You're
So
absolutely right.
I feel like that's definitely important. Another thing, because I wrote this question, I thought about myself too. I feel like us as adults also, we have to also read, because I feel like with like modern technology, more, like less and less adults read. Like you see less and less adults reading, or they might be reading on their phone. But like obviously when you were younger, you probably saw a lot of adults reading, or you were saying it was more common because that was like the vessel towards knowledge. Now we can search stuff up on Safari or Google or whatever it may be. So I feel like us as adults, we kind of have to set that standard and show them like not like we did our time already. Does that make sense? Like I understand like we might not be in school anymore or whatever it may be, but you still gain from reading.
Oh yeah.
It still stimulates your brain. What would you say inspired you to become an author and write your own book? Because I mentioned that you were a published author.
I have 4 books to my credit, 2 in my profession, 1 in just general history. I have a master's in American Studies.
Yeah.
And then I think it was a privilege. I was asked to write the history of Rolling Meadows in 1975. This predates internet. So there was no research, there was nothing to go on. But with background in research as a librarian and a background in history, I was able to put together a book called They Took the Challenge, The Story of Rolling Meadows. And the way I gathered information for that was to talk to people.
For sure.
And that was the best thing I ever did in my life, to talk to people, find out what their lives were like in the 1940s and 50s in the land that's now Rolling Meadows and was farmland then. What was it like to live on the farms and everything? So I think in your profession, you always want to publish and share information, but that was a kind of a labor of love because it combined everything that I knew.
Exactly,
Yeah, research and history.
I'm sure that was definitely very fulfilling, especially since you got asked to do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you applied for anything like that.
Yeah.
So
I had a contract, actually. It was interesting, including movie rights. There's the movie rights to this book. And my directive was, the main directive was, this is 1975, they wanted books to unpack in 1980. And that was it.
Nice.
Yeah, and they had them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm sure you definitely learned a lot from those. Like,
I did.
Like one-on-one in conversations and different like historical accounts. Like, for those of you who might not know, like most of the roads in Rolling Meadows, like Owl, so like that wasn't that like somebody's like scout project. I think maybe I don't know if you heard about that.
Tell me.
Well, I heard that like you know how it's like Owl, J Lane, like stuff like that. Like apparently it's like a Cub Scouts like project or something like that. Like to like name all of the roads. They use different birds. So that's one thing that I heard. So different. I'm sure you learned like plenty of different things just like that, where it's like small little like facts that are probably unknown to the common everyday person that just drives by.
I'll add a fact to that. When Kimball Hill and his assistant were working on the roads, and I guess the roads had been named by now, but they said, what are we going to call our community?
Yeah.
And they were standing kind of where the racetrack is now.
Yeah. Or where it used to be.
Used to be.
Yeah,
yes, that's true.
Down,
That's true, that property.
Yeah.
And they said, there was at the corner of Rowling, R-O-H-L-W-A-N-G.
Rowling, yeah.
Rowling.
Yeah.
And Euclid. Let's call it Rowling Meadows. But the assistant heard and wrote down Rolling, R-O-L-L-I-N-G.
Makes sense.
So that's how it got named.
So yeah, even little things like that, like that's pretty crazy for sure.
Yeah.
Aside from that, when did you begin your travels? Because obviously you're a very well-traveled person.
Well, I brought you some of my passports. Okay, including some probably you never seen before. These are really ancient. I couldn't find my first passport, which I got when I was 6 months old. My parents are from Central America, from a teeny country called El Salvador. It's the smallest country in Central America. And we used to go back and forth, and I made my first trip when I was 6 months old. And so I had my passport at 6 months. So some of these passports are from elementary school, some are from high school, some are from college. And we used to go back and forth. But then later when I started doing more traveling, I always found this interesting. I would fill up passports.
Yeah.
And in the old days, when you filled up your passport and you had to add pages, they would add them like this.
Yeah,
like
crazy.
an accordion
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
And now, when you fill up your passport, you have to buy a new one. So for $150.
Yeah.
So in the old days, you would just send it in, and they just add this accordion of pages. So I always found that really
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
For the listeners out there, so every time you travel, if you don't know, every time you like leave the country, or is it? Yeah, every time you leave the country, you get a stamp. So this book got filled up to where you had to get more pages added. Obviously, I've traveled to Mexico like a couple, obviously like 20 times maybe. Do you know what I'm saying? I've never gotten close to filling up a book, or you know what I'm saying? Because you get what you get. It expires, obviously, right? You get a new
10
one.
years.
Yeah,
They expire in 10 years.
Yeah, that's crazy to me.
But
That's
you
definitely
will.
impressive.
You have lots of time.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. I hope so. When would you say you started traveling? Like
By myself,
Yeah.
like not with my parents. After college.
Yeah.
And my friend Margaret planned a trip. It was one of those, if it's Tuesday, it must be someplace. Because I remember I took a nap and almost missed Liechtenstein, and stuff. And I said, I'm never doing a trip like that again, and I never have. It's kind of like 44 people in a bus, a different place every day, different countries sometimes every day, because Europe, the countries are easy to get around.
Yeah.
And so now, when I travel, I'm much more careful. I like to stay in one culture.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah.
That makes sense. And like you said, you mentioned that you travel by yourself now. Do you ever feel like anxious traveling by yourself, or like what kind of like steps or measures do you take to kind of protect yourself?
It depends where you're traveling. If you're going to the UK or France, or Canada, it's like here.
I'm sure you research before you go to a place and see what you need to prepare for.
But
obviously.
if you're going to a developing country, then you have to be a little bit more careful and really plan every single day. Where are you going to stay? How are you going to get there? What about drivers? What about guides? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Safety is always an issue, especially if you travel alone.
Yeah.
So, there are things that you do to, take care of that too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you have like maybe like a group, like obviously like not like maybe like a Facebook group, or like maybe some type of thing like that's more advanced, like a club where you kind of share like feedback, like where you've gone, maybe positive reviews, like tour guides or something like that?
Yeah, I belong to a Facebook group that does do that.
Yeah.
Also, I have a little website, EstherPerica.com.
Yeah, for sure.
Where
if anybody wants to check it out, for sure.
It's nothing's been posted since COVID, though I have been doing some traveling. But I have a new webmaster.
Yeah.
Who's going to help me.
Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So how many places have you traveled so far, and have you kept count? You're not going to say that one, I don't think, right?
I appreciate you asking, but I really don't like to say, because I'm not a country counter. It's just that, just by, look at my age and when I started. So I've had a lot of opportunity to go to different places.
And when you say country counter, is that like, obviously, like, I don't know, I don't travel a lot. Is it like a term that's maybe like frowned upon? Like people that just go to kind of get, you know what I'm saying, like a goal? I know, because I know you travel out of the respect of the countries, and you want to learn about different cultures, and you want to see the world. And so
that I've been asked to join that club. It's called the Traveler Century Club, and you have to document that you've been to 100 countries, at least 100 countries.
Makes sense.
And actually, I was on a plane with someone, and we were on our way to New Caledonia, and we made an unscheduled stop in Kiribati. And she got all excited. And it was unscheduled, it was a refueling stop with some people to get off. So she asked if she could get off the plane and take a picture, because she was a country counter, belonged to the Century Club, and she wanted it to count.
Yeah.
But see, all she saw was the tarmac.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And she counted that as a country. Yeah.
So see, now I understand why you might not want to share that, because there's different, I don't know, there's different reasonings as to why people travel. So I definitely understand that it kind of maybe takes away the meaning behind it. Thank you for sharing that. That's definitely a perspective that can be gained from listening to this. So what would you say that your most thrilling experience maybe would be?
I think Rwanda and spending time with the gorillas. I really have to hand it to that country. They've got this privilege, very organized. Only 10 people, I think 10 or 15 people in a group can go at once. You have to have a permit. The permit is now $500. After the trackers go out in the morning, I think there's several families of gorillas, and they track where they are. And then if you want an easy hike, you go over and see this group. If you want a hard hike, you go over there. Then once you complete the hike and find the gorillas, you can only spend an hour with them, and then you're called back. You're with rangers, and stuff, and they're careful to tell you the rules. Don't look them in the eye. That they see that as aggression. Don't get too close to them. If one of them comes to you, he probably just wants to sniff you or something. Don't be afraid.
Just want to check you out.
Yeah, just check you out.
Yeah.
And I think just being with, we share so much DNA. We say 95% of DNA with these. And so you do look at them and you think, oh my God, they're just like me.
Yeah. How close would you say you were to them? Did you get
I'd
to
say
interact with them?
I'd say feet.
Yeah,
I said between here and the light.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And it's because they approach us.
Yeah, and you obviously don't want to move away to startle them or anything. Yeah, that makes sense.
No.
For sure.
Yeah, and they have rules. For example, if all of a sudden you have a cold, you were not allowed to go. You can't wear perfume that day. You can't wear scented lotions. So they've really got it together in their program to see them. And they're protecting them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And aside from that, what would you say would be your most terrifying or scary, or even depressing? Because obviously maybe you're out of the country, maybe your living conditions weren't ideal at the time. What would you say?
I've got it. Holbox Island last January.
Yeah.
A friend and I, Sheila, and I have been going down to the Yucatan several times over the past, I'd say, 10 years, to visit the Mayan ruins. We have our own guide there. We have our own drivers, everything. We've seen all the main ones, and then we go visit the smaller ruins, and we're really good travelers. We'll listen. If a guide talks to us about a pile of rocks, we're just happy to listen. But usually those trips are kind of very energetic. You have to, a lot of walking, a lot of climbing, that kind of thing. So we've been going to an island called Isla Mujeres, which is just off the coast of Cancun. And if you think of Cancun, how it is, high rises and everything, Isla Mujeres is like Cancun 50 years ago. There's another island, Isla Holbox, same area, like Cancun 100 years ago. Very little paved roads. Everything low rise, little clapboard houses, some hotels. And anyhow, we were there. We had spent 4 days there. And what happened was we weren't that close to the little town. And that's where the ferry is. But a huge hurricane-level storm came up along with high tides. They came up. We were 3 blocks from the beach. Our yard was wiped out. Okay, so restaurants closed. The roads could not get past, so we could leave. It was our electricity went out, our water went out, and so we had to find a way to get off this island. And it was at least a 3-mile walk to where the ferry port was. And we had luggage.
I'm sure.
All right. So there was a little bit of construction going on very close by. Anyhow, we met one of the construction workers and talked him into bringing 3 friends, and we would pay them
to take some of your stuff
to help us, because we didn't even know the way to town, because we'd always take transportation out. And also, because the roads were washed out, we had to walk along the beach where the tide was coming in, where we had to scramble over breakwaters and stuff. So we did catch one of the last ferries away from this, and it was scary. I mean, it was scary. The funny part was getting into, so we were on our way to Isla Mujeres, and then when we got to that hotel there, trying to look a little elegant, being all washed out, our luggage was filthy, our shoes were sloshing because of the water, and checking in, and checking into this nice hotel, So I think that was the scariest, because we had everything. We had credit cards. There were no help. But we had no help. So
it was very uncertain, right? Because you didn't know when stuff was going to come back, like the power or the water or any of that
that's
stuff.
True.
And
that's
you're also
true.
in a very underdeveloped location where there's not even paved roads, like you said. So
right. And who likes to slosh through water up to their hips?
And I'm sure I don't know what you'd call it, the rescue teams or the teams that are going to go fix the stuff can't even get to it fast enough because
You're exactly
of those
right.
things. So
Yeah.
that's definitely pretty scary for sure.
It was scary.
Yeah. What would you say traveling to different places and countries has taught you?
It taught me that we're all different, but that's what makes us interesting. So you have to appreciate every culture and tradition that you're exposed to. Yeah, so I think it's taught me that.
For sure. And would you say that it's maybe changed your viewpoint on your home country, the U.S., a little bit, or no? Like when you come back, are you more grateful sometimes for more things? Or
I think we can learn from some other countries.
Yeah.
And I mean, but again, we're different.
Yeah.
And that's why we're interesting too.
Yeah, every country's different for the most part. Yeah. So, do you have like a bucket list maybe for your travels?
Not really. There's a couple places I wish I would have gone when the going was good. Right now, I'll never get to Russia. Okay, I'll never. I wanted to go to Iraq because they have beautiful archological sites.
Yeah.
I'll never get there.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
Are there any places that are like on your like countries or like locations that like are your like must like your must have to, like you have to go there basically?
If you gave me a ticket to go any place in the world, I would go to Jordan. Jordan, first of all, it's like they have the friendliest people in the world. It's that Bedouin culture that's very welcoming. They're also allies of the U.S., so it's kind of a safe country, even though it's in the Middle East. So I think that would be the country.
For sure.
Yeah.
What would you say that some of like the cultural traits or customs that you found like in other countries that might be like beneficial to like apply to the U.S. or like you were saying a little bit earlier?
Yeah. I just came back from Canada, and I really have to appreciate how far ahead they are in recycling and all that. I was never given any plastic silverware, no plastic plates, that kind of thing. Every place you go, there's several different kinds of trash cans to put all your stuff. Every place, not just some places, every place. Things that they do, they had to build a highway in the Rockies right through a forest. So what they did is they built a series of overpasses and tunnels and planted them with the same things that are in the forest, so that animals could traverse from one side to the other without getting killed by a car.
Yeah, like the animal highways you're saying, right?
What are they called?
Like the animal highways or the crossing?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so they can cross. Yeah, I've seen those like in zoos too and stuff.
Yeah.
Those are awesome.
And they actually trained, how they did this, they trained the animals to use it by planting the food that they like along. So in the tunnel, the little things that crawl on the ground could eat the berries and stuff that they like and get across. And so it's like classical conditioning. So the next generation did it, the next generation, and so now they all do it.
Yeah, that's definitely...
Stuff like that. Also, I do want to mention one more thing. Every single program in Canada starts with a comment. For example, we realize that we are standing on land, something like belongs to First Nations, and we respect their traditions and property, and we thank them. Yeah. So they never say that about Native Americans. Never. Have you ever been to a program that they thank Native Americans for being on their land?
So for those of you who don't know, Kevon's behind the camera. We go to Beloit College. There's mounds there. Like burial mounds.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's mounds on campus. So they actually have like a statement like that where it's like we realize that we're on stolen land, basically.
Thank you.
So but it's crazy that you've obviously traveled so many places, and that's one of the only places that you've noticed. In Beloit College is very respectful of that too.
They do that everywhere.
Yeah, and that's definitely awesome. I've never traveled to Canada, so I would never have known that unless you would have brought it up for sure.
Yeah,
so that's definitely awesome. And for those of you who are listening, to kind of give you like a little background, Beloit College has like burial mounds from like Native Americans, and like they have a lot of problems because some people like walk on them, or some people even unfortunately take dirt bikes over them because they don't know what it is. If that makes sense. Like I've seen like dirt bike tracks, and they have like special they have agreement with like the local tribes that like they don't mow them with like electronic mowers because it brings them down obviously and stuff like that, and like the overall stuff. So basically that's a little bit of background. So that's definitely awesome that you brought that up. How would you say that you can kind of keep yourself physically and mentally fit to kind of travel?
Well, when you get to a certain age, things start to happen, and then you realize you've got to do a little bit more about eating properly and exercising.
Yeah.
At your age, both of you, it doesn't matter. You guys live forever. You're like.
That's what we think now, at least.
Yeah, that's what you think. But there will come a time where little things start to happen, and you have to pay attention. So, you try to eat better, you try to exercise and move more.
Yeah. And would you say that I think you obviously exercise like the gym. You know what I'm saying? How often would you say you work out?
Now I do a lot of walking.
For sure.
Yeah, and I try every day.
I mean, So daily you would say basically you go to the gym.
Yeah.
Aside from that, would you say that kind of helps you when you're in your travels, because you do have to do a lot of walking, especially to these remote locations that you go to so often.
And you have to schlep your luggage and stuff, so you want to do a little weight work too.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely smart.
Yeah.
What are some of like the main habits or like daily practices that you try to like incorporate to, like we said, stay fit? Like besides like diet, and do you maybe like, I don't know?
Probably try to sleep at least 7 hours.
Yeah.
And that's, again, hard. As you get older, your body doesn't want to stay asleep that long.
Yeah.
I think that's important. It's important you keep up with your doctor's appointments. Mm-hmm. You know I'm talking like your grandmother.
No, it's fine. It's what you believe in, So thank you for that.
I know.
I mean, I also know that
you'll see when you get older.
Yeah, I also know that you give your body like time to like recover from jet lag and stuff too. Do you maybe like, have any theories as far as that, or any experiences with that?
Because I know jet lag is the worst for me. Some people have no problem at all. They can have their body make a 12-hour time change in no time at all. It takes me a while, and I finally figured out it takes me 1 day for every hour I'm off. So if I take a flight and I get to like London and I'm 6 hours off, it's going to take me 6 days to feel like I am. If I'm going to India and I'm 12 hours off, it's like murder. It takes me 12 days to get
for sure
how I should be.
That's definitely interesting. Would you say you've ever considered to like write a book about your travels, or have you maybe written one?
No, I post a lot on
your website.
And I have the blog, and no, but for writing books, no, four is enough.
Understandable. That kind of leads us into like our next like middle section, which is like the prayer and like reflection section. So I'm gonna start off right here. Father, we come to you today asking that you lead us to a virtuous and fulfilling life. We also ask that you protect and guide those who feel lost, unheard, or unwelcome. Thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. And
thank you. That was very nice.
Yep, thank you. And so that kind of leads us into like the back portion of like the interview, I guess, or like the conversation.
Okay.
Who would you say some of the main role models, or maybe people that you've looked up to throughout your life?
It would be my teachers.
Yeah.
Always treasure your teachers, no matter what level of education you're at.
Yeah.
We used to have homerooms at Elk Grove, and I'd always try to tell the kids, life is a continuum, and here you're born, here you're in high school, here you're working, here you're older. So listen and talk to people who are along this path longer than you, and you'll learn from their mistakes.
Yeah.
And they will. I've never met a person who who wanted to give you bad advice. Family members, they always want the best for you.
Yeah.
So, and teachers are like that too. They will give you the best advice and the best help.
Yeah. I've definitely experienced that myself. So for the viewers who don't know, I kind of want to be a teacher myself, and it's partially because of the teachers who have inspired me. One of them, shout out Jeff Beatty. He's my physics teacher. He was definitely very impactful for me. He was very understanding, especially like mental health and stuff like that too. So I feel like as a teacher, I could always extend that hand too, and kind of be understanding of students' home life. Like he was very understanding that I worked 6 days a week in high school, and that, you know what I'm saying, I had other stuff going on, that sometimes school isn't the most important thing, So other teachers too, like Mr. Harlan Bacchus, you might know him maybe.
What's his name?
Frank Harlan Bacchus. He was a teacher at Meadows, but he's been there for a while, so that's why I say it. But he also had a dad who was a teacher, I believe. So I don't know. He also worked with my dad at a restaurant. So yeah, I've known them for a long time. But basically, I respect teachers a lot. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
What would you say some of the traits are that you feel like a great leader must have?
I think to be honest.
Yeah.
To be accountable. If you say you're going to do something, do it.
Yeah.
Especially when you're working. And also with your friends, if you say you're going to do something with them, don't cancel at the last minute. Be accountable. And then also just treat people like you like to be treated.
For sure.
With kindness and respect and value.
Yeah, for sure. I love those. Thank you so much for sharing those. Especially like the one about keeping your word. That's something that my dad's always taught me. He's like, if you ever tell somebody that you're going to be there, you better, you know what I'm saying? Like if he's like, I told my friend I was going to be at a party. Like even like small things like that, but he's like, I have to show up at least for like 30 minutes or an hour because I told him I would be there,
That's exactly right.
And and I feel like that's definitely important. And I love how you said, like, if you say that you're going to like accomplish something, like go and do it. Like don't just say you're going to do it, because I feel like that's definitely important as a leader, is set manageable goals and accomplish them. And then even if they're baby steps, but it'll build up that confidence and build up your team's confidence or whoever you're working with. So Thank you for
Very
sharing that,
good.
for sure.
Very perceptive.
Yep.
Yeah.
What changes would you like to be seen within your own community?
You know, that's a hard question.
Yep.
I think we live in such nice communities, you know, Rolling Meadows, Elk Grove, Arlington. You know, I can't even imagine what changes I would want.
Yeah, or so I know communities kind of we use community as like a broad term on here, I guess. So it could be like communities like even within like your clubs, like anything. Maybe if you want like less like more positivity, like you know what I'm saying, like anything along those lines, like your
Yeah.
church community, anything. You know, it could be any type of community. I don't know. Do you have any ideas as far as that?
No, I don't.
No?
I'm
Okay.
sorry. That's
No,
a
it's
hard
perfectly fine.
question.
It's
Yeah.
perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the next one. What would you say the like 3 values that you hold close to yourself as like a woman?
3 values. I think honesty,
Yeah.
accountability, kindness.
Yeah, for sure.
The same that I mentioned before.
Yeah, exactly. And you also mentioned the golden rule. Obviously, right? Treat as they're going to be treated. So that's
Yeah.
something important as Christians and anybody else that's
Yeah.
religious, I guess. I feel like that's not even. I feel like I don't know. As a religion, obviously, it's important to follow that. But I feel like if everybody follows it, it would make the world a perfect place. Because if you treat everybody the way you want to be treated, then people wouldn't be a-holes or whatever, you know,
Right.
like the people that like when you're going to get a coffee at Starbucks, they won't be mad at you, or you know what I'm saying, you know, like stuff like that, or whatever it may be, because they have stuff going on in their own life and
Yes.
they're kind of projecting it. So it's important to also realize that and be the change that you want to see and not continue that cycle, I guess.
Yeah.
Who would you say has motivated you to become the best version of yourself?
I think my mother.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, mother. You know, you have to really appreciate our moms. They unconditional love, first of all. But I think that's it. Education was really important to her. She was a teacher. I mean,
Yeah.
she was educated and stuff. And then she went into banking, and was at Bank of America for many years. But she made sure that I got educated, you know, and
Yeah.
got through college. Yeah.
Well, what advice would you say that you have for like the next generation of like leaders and change makers?
What advice? I guess always do the best you can with whatever you're doing.
Yeah, so just put like
Yeah.
your best foot forward.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's probably good advice. One last question, I guess. What advice would you have to like the 10-year-old version of yourself, or like what would you say to the 10-year-old version of yourself?
Okay. Probably be more active and join more clubs at school. You know, I went to a Catholic school where I had to take 2 buses to
Yeah.
get there. So I didn't have a lot of after school time, but I think I should have made time for that.
Okay,
Yeah, so I
for
would
sure.
tell little Esther Parker that, you know, stay at school, be a part of the clubs and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Thank
Yeah.
you. So anybody that's out there that's listening, that's great advice for them.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Do you have like any closing thoughts or comments to the audience that you would like to share before we kind of end off here?
Well, thank you. No, I just really appreciate you asking me and providing such very thoughtful questions. You
Yep.
really made me reflect on a lot.
For sure.
So
Thank
I
you so much.
appreciate that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I thank you for your time. To end off, obviously, I just want to thank you, Esther, for your time and for sharing your stories and knowledge with our audience. Hopefully, we can continue to use this platform to empower others and inspire the next generation of leaders and change makers. And I just wanted to thank anyone who has made it this far in the video. Just know that I truly appreciate you and that I'm rooting for you in your success in any aspect that you're hoping to obtain it in. I'll be praying for each and every one of you, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Thank you for your time, and this was the Imperishable Consciousness Platform. Thank you.